there. Peas and carrots, peas and carrots.
Peas and carrots. Peas
And we're
and
live tonight
carrots.
again. Hello, I'm Rarchar Tortorello with my good friend Cam. Thank you for tuning in to the Patriot Sentinel. Today is Wednesday, May 20th. Cam, my friend, how are you doing today? How's my
Man,
buddy from Oklahoma?
man, this rainy weather has been insane. Like I'm ready for some heat. It's my grass is loving it, but it's growing and I can't cut it because of this whole entire weekend. And man, it's been super busy. Okay, so how are you, man? How have you been? You went to DC. What happened? Tell me.
You know what? So I don't look in DC. It was so humid. All right, I was sweating. Ball sacks were dripping. I mean, look, I am. It was bad. So I don't have any sympathy or empathy for anybody, but it was a good trip. So Trump unveiled again the new changes to TrumpRx. And he had Mark Cuban. He had the guy from GoodRx there. He had somebody, I should know these names. I have them written down someplace, but jet lag. I am blaming everything on jet lag, even though it's only 1 hour, but still, dragging yourself through DC and then coming back to Oklahoma. So some chick from Amazon and the guy who designed Airbnb, and of course, Dr. Oz and RFK were there. And I love the site. I love what he's doing. Look, other presidents have for at least 20 years discussed what they want to do about lowering drug prices, but none have done nothing. And I'm going to say the dirty word. Obamacare ruined everything for everybody. I mean, so your insurance rates skyrocketed. It did nothing for the average person, and it only made the insurance companies richer. But what TrumpRx has done, Cam, have you seen this? I mean, the new changes they had that he talked to the press about it Monday night. You can search for a drug, okay? And what it
Hmm.
does, it will look for that drug and then take your zip code or your city and show you the other pharmacies and what they're charging for the same thing. And that's game changer. So the other game changer, Mark Cuban's going to join this, and he started his own online drug company, and he will be providing services and drugs to TrumpRx to enhance the inventory, to enhance what potentially a person who does not have insurance can go into a free marketplace and find the lowest cost drug. That is what he promised he would do, and the dude is actually doing it. But you know what really surprised me on the other side of the screen with my fellow journalist is that we were fighting to ask the question, right? And the women reporters, dude, they were like the most aggressive. They were out shouting the men. All right. There was a little girl, white dress, sandals, baseball cap. I would never have expected her to be the loudest voice in the room, louder than mine, to get the president's attention. It was funny. These girls are ruthless. Ruthless, I say.
It's a young man's sport. Wow, or lady sport, whichever you want to call it. But wow, man. Okay, so wait, so how many people are in this room whenever whenever the president was presenting?
So you know what? So the press, we're selected beforehand. Not everybody gets a chance to go in, and then it's behind the White House in the Eisenhower building. Is what I want to call it. And back there, they have a whole stage set up where he does have his briefings there too as well. So when you see things like that, they have certain stages where they send the president back, and the press comes back, and the TV cameras are back there, and he does his presentation and then he turns it over to the press to answer questions. But I think one of the biggest questions that was asked that he kind of thumbed his nose at, but a CNN reporter asked about, why are taxpayers on the hook for the $1.7 billion fund to help those that were impacted by lawfare? And of course he goes, oh, I figured CNN would ask a question like that. But his correct response was that everybody January 6th, General Flynn, anybody who was around Trump's circle was impacted by lawfare by Obama and the corrupt Department of Justice and Biden. And so everybody who was ever attacked by the federal government, they lost everything. And so this fund will look at each individual person and evaluate what had happened to them, how much they lost. I don't know what the criteria is. It will come, but basically it will make those people as whole as possible. And I think that's another promise that Trump had made, and it was the right thing to do, because when you have a government chasing after you or coming after you or us, they have unlimited funds. And how do you fight your own government when they have at their disposal unlimited funds? But anyways, tonight we have two great guests. I've always wanted this guy to come back on the show. Larry STEIN, candidate for Oklahoma County Assessor, and Larry is on the line, but he's coming on. We had Fertling Kearns on last week.
Last week?
Last week. And as we get Larry STEIN on to talk about his campaign, do you have any kind of words to say about Larry STEIN? I hear he's hard. I don't know. Have you
So
heard
with
that?
Larry, hey, with Larry,
Yes.
if
Oh,
you
there he
call
is. He's
Larry
here.
Stein, he's gonna answer the phone. He answered just now, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Larry Stein.
And of course, hey
Wow.
Larry, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing great, guys, and I wonder were some of those women talking about the abortion drug by chance, and whether that would be available under the new plan?
No, that was not the topic of conversation. It was mainly the Department of Justice's new fund that was put together
Yeah.
by an oversight committee, not the oversight committee, but about 4 or 5 DOJ staffers, and
Yeah.
Trump had nothing to do with it. But it was needed, and so that was a topic of conversation. Of course, the war with Iran, always a big topic of conversation. But I like the way that Trump handles the press. When he ran the first time, look, they were combative, and so was he. But this time here, he goes, "Oh, I just CNN. That's a stupid question." CNN. He just laughs and keeps going, and he has
Yeah.
learned a lot in his second term, which has enabled him, Larry, to make and do everything that's good for America. The TrumpRx, I think, it has saved Americans hundreds of thousands of dollars in prescription drug prices. And for those that aren't covered with insurance or those that fell into the Obamacare trap, this is a great place to go and find the drug you need at the lowest price. Now, when Mark Cuban gets involved in this, Amazon is involved now. They'll be delivering the drugs. GoodRx is behind the scenes, and the guy who developed the Airbnb website is doing the whole, the design. Trump has brought talent in for everything he's done, and this is another example of what he's done for the nation. But hey, our viewers want to know, what is Larry STEIN doing for Oklahoma County, and how are you doing, by the way, Larry? Last time I saw you was 2 weeks ago at the governor and lieutenant governor's forum, and we talked for a few
Yeah.
minutes. But since then, how are you doing? How's your campaign? And do you have any good news or anything to share?
Well, it's amazing the kind of response that you can get when you've been out there doing things to help people, and that's really what the job of assessor is what you make it, and being accessible. I love it when I get to. I've been at a number of forums in the county, and the thing that I love it when people who I know, they always say, I needed some information, so I called Larry's office, and then they say, "Oh, wait a minute, he answered the phone." And they're surprised that they get a phone answered by me. And I'm oftentimes wondering, why would you be surprised that you got my phone number? I got my phone number on people's phones all over the world, including in Baghdad, Iraq. I don't know if I've told you the story, but that I've got a guy that called me up at 3:30 in the morning because I do a lot of news releases because I want people to understand the complicated process of what we do and why we do it. And I got a call at 3:30 in the morning. When I got a 3:30 in the morning call, I'm thinking the sheriff's office is calling because the county building's on fire, or there is sewage rolling down the walls, and I've got to get the computers out of the way. Anyway, guy calls me up and he said, "Are you the assessor?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he says, "Would you be able to answer a question about some property in Oklahoma County?" I said, Well, who are you? Because I'm thinking it's an emergency. He said, well, my name's Sergeant something or other, and I'm stationed in Baghdad, Iraq. I said, well, that's wonderful. Thank you for your service. What time is it in Baghdad? And he said, well, it's 9:30 in the morning. I said, you happen to know what time it is in Oklahoma City? And he said, yeah, you guys are ahead of us, aren't you? And that's when I and that's when I knew he was not an academy graduate and was
wait.
unfamiliar
Okay,
with
no.
Zimmer
Look,
time.
wait a minute. Wait a minute. Look, that has nothing to do with it. He was probably just a young sergeant who didn't know
Yep.
the time conversion, and he was probably working. Look, he was probably getting off an 18-hour shift. And just
Exactly.
didn't know
And he thought, what the
didn't know
heck?
the time
So
conversion.
yeah, so he was sitting there saying, anyway, my wife and I are looking at this house in Oklahoma County, and we were wondering if you might be able to answer a few questions about it. I said, yeah, Sergeant, I appreciate you working. I appreciate your service. Thank you so much. I said, but it's 3:30 here, so if I could maybe get a text from you, I'll be happy to get all the questions answered. First thing tomorrow morning, close the business, you'll have all the information. And then or there's the other way we can handle this. You give me your personal cell phone and I'll call you at 3:30 tomorrow morning.
Well, what do you say to
So it
that?
worked out.
Did you call him the next day?
No, I didn't. He sent me the message. I got all the information he wanted and was able to send it to him over the amazing internet. Thank you, Al Gore.
Hey, you know what? Thank you, Al Gore. Yes, right. He did discover and invent the internet. So tell us,
Exactly.
the last time you and I spoke, we had a lengthy conversation, and I think it's probably one conversation you're probably having with a lot of constituents. And Cam, you can chime in here, but it's the property tax thing here. So when you're having these conversations, and okay, the property tax conversation comes up. How are their emotions? Are they upset? Are they like, hey, we want this gun. Tell us why we can't have this gun. Is that even an issue in the campaign trail?
Yeah, sometimes it all depends on who you're talking to. The bottom line is that every one of the 50 states relies on property tax because it is the only reliable funding source for the most important. Most states, the biggest thing they have, the biggest expense is the operation of public schools because they want to educate the kids for the next generation and make them better off than they are. And then I get people who say, well, I don't have any children in the schools. And I said, well, okay, let's say you live in Edmond or Norman and you want to put your house on the market. What's the first thing you tell everybody? Okay, well, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, 1,600 square feet. Edmond schools or Norman schools. So, folks, the property taxes that people pay, and I don't do taxes, I just assess the value. But when you've got properties that are paying money to support a school system and the foundation of government, which is the first government, which is county government. And that's the thing that when you're living in a large metropolitan area, everybody has schools, but sometimes the requirements of the counties is lost because you've got a police department. In about 65 counties across the state, if you've got a problem with someone threatening you or causing violence or could cause violence against you, you don't get to call the police department in 65 counties. You're calling your sheriff. And that sheriff is funded by your property taxes. And in many instances, the property tax, either directly or indirectly, is paying for your electrical service, your sewage service, your garbage service, all of those things that give your house value. It's
Wow.
also the largest.
So
Go
Larry,
ahead,
let me
Cam.
ask you so you're telling me that when I get a bill to pay my taxes, it's not from Larry Stein. Who's
Nope.
that coming from?
That comes from your treasurer, and that's the biggest misunderstanding about property taxes in general. There's one assessor, and the one assessor in every county assesses the market value of your property. And then based on that value, every one of those cities and towns in Oklahoma County, there's 19 cities and towns, 19 different school districts. Every one of those school districts has the ability of raising property taxes. I don't raise the property taxes. The individuals do. And that's why there was kind of a disconnect between the folks who are running for governor. When we're looking at what happens, any gubernatorial candidate says, I'm going to freeze your property taxes. Well, every city has the opportunity to raise property tax, and so do school districts, because you trying to freeze property taxes, it would be an unconstitutional opportunity, because every school district has the right to be able to protect their current investment, to protect them from, by putting a new roof on, or building a building to be able to associate with the growth, because education in Oklahoma is almost like a public utility. You don't
Right.
have a choice. You can't say, well, you know what? A utility gets a request. They said, okay, there's a new house being built down at the end of the road down there. Well, that's too far for us to be able to run a line to run electrical service or water
Mm-hmm.
service. No, the utilities have to do that. And when we're talking about children getting an education, the founders were extremely precise. They wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for a public education everywhere. And just as we have electrical lines that go to the farthest reaches of our state, we also have children that are at the farthest regions of our state, but they expect, and their parents expect, since they do pay property taxes, they expect those children to have an education, because for the most part, they don't have the ability, the desire, or the funds to have a private education. So it's extremely, it's the basis, the first foundation of our state, the most important thing. And that's 50 mills, which means half of every property tax dollar goes to education in Oklahoma County, because we have technology centers, we have state colleges. Those are also funded by the property tax dollar. So that dollar is 70 cents out of every dollar goes to fund education. And remember, I'm visiting with a Canadian company. It's an aerospace company. They want to come to Oklahoma and do their business. They estimate they will save 40% on their property taxes if they move to Oklahoma and work with Tinker Air Force Base, the state's largest single site employer. And if they come here, they're going to save money, they're going to bring jobs, and they're going to support Tinker or other entities that are in the most, we used to talk about the oil and gas industry as being number
Mm-hmm.
one, but aerospace, we've got all sorts of industries that are associated with aerospace across our state, but a lot of them are around Tinker Air Force Base. And then, of course, we got American Airlines up in the Tulsa area. So it is an extremely important part of our industry. And the technology centers are the ones that are training the next generation of engineers and manufacturers and people who work with their hands to build things. We rely on them to be able to provide that service, so they can go right out of the technology center and go right into the job market and work for Boeing or any of the other aviation industries that are out there.
Yeah, but those technology centers, do we vote on increasing? We vote on the bonds that go to the technology centers.
Yeah.
What people have a problem with is that they don't have a vote or a say on property taxes here. And let me ask you a question: if by chance,
Well, yeah, they do.
it works
Yeah, they
out,
do.
hold on a second. What if by chance they there's a petition it's going around. I think it went to the Supreme Court last week or sometime this week. I'm not sure what the disposition is of it, but if if the petition comes back, they get enough signatures, they get it on the ballot. What would happen, and how will funds be raised county by county if they decided to get rid of some of the property taxes? Would they institute a consumption tax? What do you think would be done to raise money to fulfill that potential shortfall that you would normally have gotten from property taxes?
There's been a lot of work done across the state by banks, businesses that are involved in public finance, and other entities, and of course assessor's office, because that's the basis for where those monies go. There's two different plans. There's the one is going to the ballot on the November ballot, and it doesn't cut property taxes. What it does is it reduces the assessment rate. And that's important for everybody to remember. The assessment rate is what happens when properties are assessed for their value. And then there's a complicated formula, but for every $100,000 of value, you're paying about $1,000 in property taxes. So in Oklahoma County, if this plan is changed, where the assessment rate is reduced from the current 5 and 3% to 4 and 1.75. What that means is there are billions of dollars that have been sold by cities and passed by voters, a contract. The citizens have voted by 60% to take on this debt, just like a mortgage or just like a car payment. The difference is it's a substantially larger debt and obligation. If that passes in Oklahoma County or in Oklahoma, and then the impact on Oklahoma County is that 7% rate of return that is expected by the bond sellers to pay back the bonds may be reduced substantially, perhaps from 7% to 3 or 2 or somewhere around there. Now, this is the complicated part. When you get to the school districts, they have that debt obligation to pay back. And the cities and towns, as I mentioned before, they have $3 billion in debt that they plan to sell bonds for, or have already sold it. If the rate of return to pay off those bonds that they sold at expected to be paid back at 7% is now 2%, then the schools and the cities have the ability to increase the millage rate unilaterally, which could double your property taxes. So the assessors, we know what we're talking about when these things come about, and we tried to explain to the legislators, be careful, because a small minor change in the ad valorem system can have a big impact. And that's one of the things that we're estimating, that there'd be about a $50 million cut in Oklahoma County. And there's no plan from the legislature to replace that fund. And statewide, it could be substantial to small school districts and large school districts. But the big problem is that when you're looking at bond packages that are expecting a 7%, the bond advisors, the people that are planning to sell the bond, they expect a 7% return. And if you don't have that 7% return anymore, then you could be in a situation where you can never, ever sell another bond, because you'd have to have a 50-year bond to pay it back, and the rate of return would be so low, it can take forever, and nobody's going to sell a bond for 50 years at a 1% rate of return.
And nobody will ever buy a bond from us in the future. That's a
Exactly. No, I doubt it. And that's the problem schools see.
So Larry, let me ask you, when you're talking about all this information, are you required to take tests, lessons? I'm going to give you a two-part question. So tests, lessons, and also, can you give us kind of like the insight of what the county assessor does with the jail? Because everybody keeps saying, well, the county assessor does so much with the jail. I'm like, okay, let's ask the man.
Yeah, that's not the case. The jail is operated and maintained by the county commissioners. They are the ones that are responsible, and in every one of the counties across the state, they are the ones who are responsible. They're the ones that get sued. They're the body that gets sued whenever there's a lawsuit against the county. So the assessor's job in an Oklahoma county, we do is the assessment of value. There's only one. And then we have a treasurer that sends out a bill. There's only one treasurer. He sends out one bill, but there's 19 cities and towns, 19 school districts. They go and raise taxes, and I'm responsible for assessing that obligation on all their property. The treasurer is responsible for sending out the tax bill for all of those other entities. All they did was vote. And then they sit back, and then the county, through the system that we have, the county does all the work to be able to generate that money for them. They don't do anything. And if you want to find out where your property tax dollars are going, your treasurer's office can provide the apportionment, but the work to be able to bring that money into their coffers is done by one assessor to assess the value and create a tax roll for the treasurer, and the treasurer sends out the bill. And those cities and towns and schools, they just sit back and get the money. And whenever they propose their plans, it's, well, this is going to be really good because we really have to buy some new buses. And they make an argument, they go to the polls, but they don't do any of the work to be able to get those funds. They rely on the assessor to assess to assess the obligation, and then the treasurer to send out the bills.
A complicated process for sure. Larry, thank you for coming on today. You've always been a stand-up guy. Come on anytime. Look, people, the biggest question I have, that I have that I get from most people is the property tax issue. And I know you're just the assessor. A lot of moving parts here, but a lot of folks, they just don't like the idea of continuously paying in for something they bought that they have to have or become homeless. But that's a conversation again.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I'd be happy to visit more about it, because it's really the obligation that is currently on
Oh, I
water
know.
systems and electricity and everything else.
People,
So,
I think people don't understand the complications behind it, and
agreed.
maybe just need to be more educated. But I wouldn't, that's not a bad thing, and they're by no means ignorant. They just don't understand why they have to continuously pay taxes on something they've had, like their home, and they have to pay it or fear being fined or selling it to a tax lien investor and so forth here. But that's a conversation for another episode. Feel free to come on anytime you want. You're a stand-up guy. We like having you on. Good luck in your race. We've got 20 days left until the June 16th primary. And right now you have a competitor in the race. And I like both you guys. And, good luck, Larry.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate you having me.
All right, bye.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
He's he's always a stand-up guy, and I always like having him on, and the conversations are well. But property taxes are always a concern for people because who wants to continue to pay taxes? But his explanation on what needs to be paid and how things are, it does make sense. But some people just don't want to hear that sometimes, and maybe that's the situation. But property tax is the number one issue in the county assessor's race, I believe, will be the factor on who wins on June 16th.
It's going to be an interesting race. Again, I think both bring different strengths and different approaches. When Larry talks about how he sees the future job market and how the county assessor is evaluating those properties, I'm going, okay, I see what you're talking about. But then when you hear Furling and how he explains how the jail trust and how the jail and all that stuff for Oklahoma County is working, I could see his side too. I'm really curious how this primary is going to be like, man. I'll be honest with you.
No, people are waiting, and it's going to be a competitive race. But now we have to switch to Norman, Oklahoma, and Cleveland County, and we have. I wouldn't say he's newly elected. He's been in the seats since April. Are we still in April?
He's
We're in
seasoned.
May. So over about a month and a half now. TREY Kirby from Ward 5, and Norman's biggest issue right now is the homeless. And it's always been a problem since I was on council. And I think the solution needs to be where the council works together with the community to find a plan that works for everybody. And, politics sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't, Trey. And Trey, we didn't talk the last time, last week when you were supposed to be on, but kind of catch us up on the state of Norman's homeless situation, and is that Norman's priority right now to deal with?
It's definitely a priority in Norman. We have a lot of other priorities, like with OKC just 2 days ago passing get arounds to the moratorium that they had put into place to stop AI data centers for a minute, why they did studies, and there's a few councilmen there. Well, I mean, they voted 7-2 to go ahead and allow a few of them to move on. And even these small ones that are putting off the kind of power that they're going to use are still going to use somewhere between 750,000 gallons to 1.5 million gallons a day. So we're definitely looking at that. But the homeless right now in Norman is definitely one of the biggest issues because they're just moving back and forth from one part to another. And, these people are troubled. And so needles and stuff will get left behind. As you've seen on the news, there was one passed away a few days ago in an encampment near an encampment here. We're still waiting on the results to figure out what happened. There's a few people on council wanting to expand the current shelter down on Gray. That's super controversial because that was supposed to be temporary. It's been moved 2 or 3 times already. In 18 months, we were supposed to be tearing it down or selling it or doing whatever. It was the whole point of voting for this new shelter was to move it from there to over to Reed Street, because it wasn't to create a new shelter. It was to, they were in this one and it don't meet the code. It's not, any other business would not be able to operate out of this facility with the code the way it is on this one. To add a fire sprinkler system and get through that updates, there's asbestos on the paint. So you're going to have an abatement come in and clean the walls everywhere. You're going to punch for the sprinkler system. You're going to have to install a bigger riser outside. And then at the end, it gets down to it's mainly an expansion for men from the way I understand it. So I was raised, where it's the children first, then the women, and then the men. So,
hey, Trey, let me jump in real quick here. Do you think that's because United Way and some other shelters in town are housing the women and children? Is it a possibility that that they already have a place to go, or are you seeing the numbers that are currently in that temporary shelter on Gray Street? Because you can't have children in that location. Not with a bunch of men, homeless men. So is that the case? And also, I saw a study session last night. I saw 2 questions here. So is that not the case? I think that they have a place to go, the women and children. This is mainly to expand it for the men and some women. They stay there. And question 2, I watched study session last night, and you had a brilliant idea of putting a big ass tent someplace and let them sleep in a tent. But the problem was, I heard the mayor said, "Where do we put the tent?" So go ahead and start with the first question, then we'll transition into the second question.
So with the men question, when you watched the last week's meeting on Tuesday, one man got up and spoke. Half a dozen women got up and spoke. So to me, it says we need it for women. When I say children, a 19-year-old is a child to me. Someone who just turned 18 is still a child to me. These are people who probably didn't come from the best life. If they're that young and already on the street, they didn't have a chance to start with, more than likely. So these are children who still have minds that can be molded, that there is a great future and life is great. And, this ain't the path. We can get you in and we can get you a path forward that is not going to end with you being 50 years old 30 years from now and still in a tent. We can't let that be considered acceptable because they are still young and they are still groomable. So if they're going to be groomed, I would rather them be groomed by somebody who has a successful life or has raised children, or who, I want them, somebody who's going to teach them how to pay bills, how to go to work every day, how to wake up even on the worst days and have a positive feeling, even on the saddest days. If you're feeling sad, play a song. Was it Bobby McFerrin or whoever said that, music heals? So,
it does.
Sometimes
it
that's
does.
what you got to do.
Wow.
So on
Hey,
the
Trey,
second question,
on the second side,
go ahead.
it's going to cost $150,000 or more to expand this building. On the high side, on the low side, 45,000, and then you're leaving the asbestos, and you're not creating a better environment, and you're making it dangerous for our firemen and our first responders at that point. So we can't do that. I requested a quote from a company for 10 bunkhouses, where you would have 2 rooms in each bunkhouse. 2 people could sleep in each room. It gives you a lockable room in a bunkhouse, and then a shower tray bunk, and it's 8 showers. All have separate outside doors with stairs up to them. And you would have a toilet, a sink, and a shower in there. So if you needed a shower, you could go in, lock the door, know you're protected while you do what you need to do, and then get back up and come out. And then a laundry that provides 8 washers or 6 stackable washers and dryers, another couple sinks, and the quote on that was like for the whole 18 months would have been like $104,000. So
Mm.
you could have set it up right next to Food and Friends, and we have,
Food
say,
and shelter.
30 people over there. You could have had them all housed for cheaper than what we could, and it would have made the downtown businesses feel better because that was supposed to be temporary anyway. So I also asked the city attorney and manager, could we just sell it to somebody? And he said, yeah, you could sell it and have a dollar contract with the person that until our shelter was built, we would lease that for $1. And the other city attorney didn't like that idea because it sounded complicated. And I asked if we could make a contract guaranteeing that in 18 months, if we made this investment to expand the shelter, how could we guarantee all these people who for the last 5, 6, 7 years been thinking this was temporary, and they've got their life savings invested in these businesses, and they made downtown again, and then now we're not standing by their investment. So, when I got voted in, I said I would always be the people's voice when it came to the homeless, but I also said I would be Ward 5's voice at all times. And I've heard we're up to 5 encampments in Ward 5 by itself. So every single ward is actually dealing with this issue. So it's time to quit doing tents, and that's my biggest thing is the tents. It hasn't worked anywhere. Arizona almost got ran over in Phoenix with it. California, you look at the condition it's in. New York actually went opposite of the tents. But sometimes you got to do tough love, and we need people inside, indoors, where people can get there and help them. Whether it's somebody who comes from a church just to give a hymn or a gospel from a book, or whether it's just somebody who has 45 minutes extra every day to just come and sit and listen to someone and talk to them and say something kind to give a person the want to move on in life. I mean, I'm not a psychologist and I'm not trying to be one, but I feel like if you make somebody feel like they're worth more than tent in the dirt outside and you bring them inside, then that gives them the want and the hope to be better in life and more successful, because at that point they know that they are worth something, because every life is precious. So they know that they have a purpose to get up and move, because there's people that they don't even know who are standing behind them. I knew, like I said earlier, I knew a lady worked for Norman Regional as a nurse, and she took 2 guys out of Norman that were homeless. They were known to be homeless. We had a particular police officer in Norman. He'd arrest one every time because he was just, I still know the guy to this day, and he could be one of the kindest souls, but he can be pretty ornery too, and she took him out to his place, and the one guy lived for, I don't know, 8 years, and he died. But when he died at her place, he knew people were around him that loved him and cared for him. So, I mean, he went happy and he went with a meaning. And the other guy, he still lives there. He don't work. He don't want to work. He has no urge to work. But like when it comes to that property, she does nothing. If she wants a garden, he plants that garden. The yard is mowed. The trees are trimmed. The house is painted, and they don't, it's just their own mutual agreement. But whatever it was, she changed his life, and that's
Right.
when we say we need help from the people, that's what we're talking about. We're not trying to guilt you. We're not trying to say you need to feel obligated. We're saying if you have a hollow spot in your life, or you have a spot in your life where you feel empty and you need to do something with it, and you're not expecting nothing back in return, but you think you can go change somebody's life by mentoring them, then man, come on down, because them words could be what it takes to get them off the street and into a better path forward.
And these are
Hey
all
Trey,
good points that
let me ask you a question real quick. Hey Trey, to maintain the homeless shelter, how much is that going to be per year? Is there an estimation yet?
So, I mean, it's already costing like $860,000 a year at the current shelter, and it's not. It's like I said, not even a code. It's not great. The new shelter will be larger. It'll have so many kennels for pets for people who won't come to a shelter currently because they have a pet. So we'll offer kennels. It'll have a kind of a doctor. We've had a few people request like a library for books because they'd like to read when they're going to sleep. But it will cost about the same. The difference is the city care said hopefully within the first 5 to 10 years they can start getting enough donations and grants and private donors that they can cut off all the costs from the person. And then the shelter, we got a great bond. I think it was like 3.08 on interest. So you're looking at like $3 million over the term of the bond worth of interest. So 8 million is what we're going to take, and we're going to have to pay back a little over 11 million over its term if we go the full term. We have a few people locally who donate to like Salvation Army, a couple $1 million every now and again, and they said that they'll start donating towards this. So if them private donors step up, I mean, it could pay off in 5 to 10 years. It just depends on how much the community puts forth towards it. And that's kind of where it comes with these 35 people. If we have 463 people homeless in Norman and we only have 35 that are being publicly in parks and stuff, then that to me are people who are asking for our help silently. I mean, they have came out, they have exposed themselves in the most vulnerable way. And to me, that maybe that's their way of asking us to come and help somehow, because they're tired of living in the tents, you know? So, like, it's a worldwide issue. 79 countries report homeless. There are 300 million reported homeless people worldwide in the 79 countries that report it. I mean, there's only like 345 million people in the U.S. total. So there is almost as many people worldwide homeless as what our population is in the U.S. So
that's a staggering number, Trey. That's a staggering number. Let me ask you another question. It's more a positive question. I know that you're almost on your 2-month stint as the Ward 5 City Council member here. Yeah, 2 months. Hey, it's going to feel like 2 years. Okay, so how are you getting along with the other council members? I see that you guys are working well together. You're having great conversations. But what is it like on the other side of the dais?
And I'll tell you right now, the last 2 months has been great. The orientations were just super fun. I dig numbers and I like reading, so all the stuff I get to see is really awesome. Getting to see the positive growth for Norman, or the impact that's going to happen, getting to have a word in on the conversation for all the people who voted for me, and getting to read all the emails has just been amazing. And I still feel truly blessed and lucky and just humbled that I'm even sitting here. It's been just, I really love this. So up until this homeless issue really hit, I mean, everything's been great. And then we come along this homeless thing, and it's like hitting a brick wall. All of us counselors, I think, are doing great together, as far as I know. I mean, everybody answers my phone calls. I'm a little bit new, so I'm probably a little obnoxious, you know, because I'm always calling or emailing and asking the questions.
A little bit new. You're still new.
I just want to absorb everything now, like as much as I can. But as far as like this position, I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity, because I never would have expected like this much information to be at your fingertips, and to be able to watch just how much a city that I was born and raised in has evolved just in my lifetime, let alone like my mom and dad's, and where it's going with my kids. So that's really been a fun trip. I mean, I don't, call me a nerd or whatever, but I'm reading the contract as we speak over here. So
hey, let me ask you, let's switch back to Ward 5. So any good conversations with the good people of East Norman and Ward 5? What's the best conversation you've had so far?
Oh, that's tough, because I like farming. So I get a lot of pictures of people's animals. I've had a few people just call and ask advice, you know, about their goats or about cattle, something as small as like, you know, what to treat for ticks or fleas. But had a lot of interesting conversations on, once again, like I said, the data centers, because a lot of people are concerned about the data centers coming this way with the water. We don't have no water, so not a really good idea. And then the turnpike, of course, everybody wants to make sure that turnpike ain't going nowhere. And I still have a lot of interesting conversations about that UMP TIF, because nobody in Ward 5 wants to see the way that's being financed. So it just kind of depends. But I think they're all great.
Absolutely. Hey, Cam, do you have any last questions to ask Trey before we let him go?
Hey Trey, congrats, man. Again, every single time you come in, I'm like, he's energized. He's reading contracts. He's taking notes. He's positive. Look, I'd rather have a person who's going to be working for the people and is energetic than somebody who's like, it's awful. Trey, good job, man. Keep doing what you're doing. You're helping the community. You're there. You're doing your job. I'm really excited the things that you're doing, man.
And I'll
you.
have to echo that too as well, because look, I think you're the right person at the right time for this job. And we need somebody, look, all of Norman needs somebody who will listen to the constituents and the voters and have empathy. And, I've known you for a while. And I want to say that our street, okay, Rose Rock Drive, is famous because we got 2 city council members from the same street. And so it must be the water. Something in the
Don't forget,
water.
David Boren lived on Cardinal just around the corner from us.
I can't forget that. I was trying to forget that, but thank you for bringing it back up, bro. Trey, anytime you want to come back on, I know that you get your hands full here, but like I said, you are the best guy for the job here, and the voters will see it. I'm already watching your fellow council members and how you interact with staff, and all I hear from everybody is that they love what you're doing. So keep representing Ward 5, keep representing Norman, and be the voice for East Norman that they need and have. But you have the last word, sir.
Thank you. Y'all have a great night. I appreciate it.
All right. Be good, bro.
Bye.
And that was Trey Kirby, new council member for Ward 5, City of Norman. Always nice to have those representatives on. To basically just say what's going on, and the homeless is always going to be an issue in Norman. But my stand is that it's better to deal with it now than to kick the can down the road, and it impacts the economics of Norman to do nothing, and doing nothing is just as bad as making a plan that may turn out to be wrong. And so the only way to fix the problem is for everyone to work together on it. And the voters voted overwhelmingly for Proposition 5, which was to fund a shelter. Okay, that is what's on the books now. And that is what everybody in Norman has to deal with, regardless of how you vote. Now it's a done deal. Live with it, work together on it. It's there. But switching on to entertainment, we talked about this before the show. The Boys, Amazon Prime, the best anti-superhero series ever, is in its 5th and final year. And tonight is the last episode. And I did post a spoiler. Video earlier today. And I was thinking, should I do it or not? Okay. But for those that follow the show and you watch it, I think you'll be blown away. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, The Boys on Amazon Prime, you are missing out on prime American movie making and characterization of the left and the right. It's symbolic of conservatives vote versus liberal Democrats. But you haven't watched but episode 1 of season 1. Is that correct, Trey?
Season 1.
Cam?
Season 1, bro. I've only watched season 1.
Have you watched? Why? Why not season 2? You're missing
season
3.
Time, man. I've been doing the podcast, family, kid, how it is, work. I don't got the awesome life of retirement. When I retire, I hope I'm able to finish watching The Boys.
Hey, so if everything works well, and everything has worked well for us here, we'll have, like I said, more sponsors, a sponsor, and that means, my goal is to, like most women, when they join a network marketing company, they say, I want to retire my husband. Well, bro, I'm going to find a way to retire you from civil service, because I think you need to have, it may work out here, hopefully, by the end of this year. That is the plan.
Oh, that's awesome, bro.
Is Melinda back there? She go, no, better have health insurance. Gotta have all the insurance.
Responsibility. You know how it is, man. Well, but hey, man, look, entertainment. So the Thunder is playing right now, and the Oklahoma City Thunder is down by 1 game. So hopefully today we're able to win. So after the podcast, watch the Thunder.
Yes, so that is the next. I think they are they playing now. Let me check the screens.
Bro, first quarter.
Yep, they are. Look at this. But see, I have mine on recording on YouTube TV, which I think everyone should get. It's the best TV service you can buy for $90. I
Sponsors.
mean,
Come on, we need the sponsors.
all yeah. Watch YouTube
Thunder,
TV.
YouTube, Amazon, Tesla.
Okay. Hey, see how that worked in fine? Yes, Amazon is a sponsor, and so is YouTube TV. But there you go. We did say it tonight, and Cam, it's always been a pleasure working with you. And I found a brother not in Christ, but in arms too as well. And I'm glad we can have these conversations, and I look forward to many more. And I want this podcast hopefully one day to go nationwide.
Heck yeah.
Thank you, bro.
Broskies. I'm going to finish with Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day is more than a long weekend. It is the solemn reminder that freedom has been defended by the courage, sacrifice, and service of American fallen heroes. Honor their memory by living with gratitude, unity, and purpose. So don't forget Memorial Day, guys.
And that will be our next week's episode. We will have Oklahoma Treasurer Todd Russ on with us, and we'll be discussing his race to keep his seat, as well as Memorial Day weekend, because it is a weekend. Look, we shouldn't have one day out of the year to remember those that have fallen before us. We wouldn't be here for those that gave their life, the ultimate sacrifice for this country in our way of life. And so it's a shame that we don't have every day as Memorial Day, but in the veteran community, in some communities, every day is Memorial Day. And we have to honor these men and women who have lost their lives for us, for you and me and our families. That's what it means to be an American. And with that, I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight. It's always a pleasure having this conversation with you, and we'll see you guys next week. Don't forget, Todd Russ, and we'll have a Memorial Day episode. Cam, thank you for showing up tonight. I love you, my brother. Have a nice night.
Take care, y'all.
Bye.